Hey, welcome back to the channel, my fellow weather junkies. I'm your host, Greg Majeski, your personal weatherman here, bringing you the weather without all that social media hype here on your Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. Let's take a look at what we're tracking here for today as we've going to be looking at the latest on this southern snowstorm coming our way. We'll take a look at those potential snow amounts we can see across the deep south from Texas all the way over into Georgia. We're going to take a look at another polar vortex invasion dropping down into the continent of the United States. And we're also going to talk about the next potential big snowstorm. So it looks like it's going to continue to stay active as we go further into the month of January. Now, looking at our latest satellite imagery, it is just plain old cold here across the country. Got a little bit of snow here across the Intermountain region, and we're starting to see some of this moisture getting tapped out of the Pacific. That's going to help feed the cyclogenesis. That's a fancy word for a low pressure developing, by the way, down here along the Gulf Coast. It's going to be tracking this way, but looking pretty quiet here across most of the area. We do have a bit of high pressure ridging here across the areas heading into the northwest, so things are going to get to dry out here a little bit here across the Pacific Northwest and down into California as we go through the next few days. Now, as we take a look at our current watches and warnings, you can clearly see the big breakout here. Winter storm watches here going all the way from Georgia, Tennessee, all the way back into Texas. Already got the winter storm warnings up as that precipitation begins to erupt here as we head into tonight. And we got a little bit of winter weather out here across the areas of New Mexico and Texas, as well as into Montana, and continued breezy out here in the west into Nevada and California. All right, let's look at our surface map. One thing you're going to see, you don't see this very often. There's a lack of any major storm systems across the country. We just got big old area of high pressure, cold Arctic high pressure. You got temperatures down to -2 there in Nebraska, 9 there near Kansas City, very cold indeed, all the way down into deep south, 30 degrees in Mobile, 35 down there in near Jacksonville, so very cold. Here's the precipitation just starting to erupt here now across Texas, and this is going to be getting progressively worse as we watch this energy start to climb on out of the southwest and move in toward Texas. Now, the heavy snows I can find here for this morning is actually up here into areas of Washington State going into Idaho, as you see here near St. Mary's and getting over near Kellogg. Some pretty good heavy snows here are going to be pulling into Pullman, so that's the heavy snow activity I can find across the country because compliments of that big area of high pressure. There's not really a whole lot of weather going on to begin our day, but that's quickly going to change. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the latest from the Storms Prediction Center. Another part of this storm system is developing. We are going to have a little bit of thunderstorms with it, as you can see there with our day one outlook. No severe weather expected with this. Now, what's interesting about the thunderstorm threat here is, I do want to bring this up. So let me go ahead and step you through this. This is your day one outlook. This is obviously for today on Wednesday. As we go into day two, we'll see that move off toward the east there a little bit. They were mostly along the Texas Gulf Coast. It really hasn't changed much from yesterday and over toward Louisiana. And then this will slide off this way as that low tracks along the Gulf Coast. So our day three outlook here brings it there right along the Carolina coast, South Carolina coast, and stretching all the way back into Louisiana. So that is where that low will be tracking. There'll be a few thunderstorms there. And what's interesting about that is if we get thunderstorms down there, that can steal some of the potential moisture for areas further north from potential snows as far as the amounts are concerned. So that's something I've seen historically in the past when we've seen these kind of systems develop with Gulf pressure lows to form there, especially during the wintertime. So let's go ahead and talk about the excessive rainfall amount. This is going to be your day two. This is for tomorrow. Okay, this is for Thursday, basically predominantly right there along the Texas Gulf Coast and over to Louisiana. And this too will slide off toward the east as well. So when you look at your day three, as we go into your Friday, it starts to, again, pick up there along the Gulf Coast. That's obviously where the thunderstorms are going to be as well. So we're talking about Florida Panhandle back over to Louisiana, some brief heavy rains and some localized flooding possible in those zones. So again, as I mentioned yesterday, we knew this was going to get updated. This is your hazards outlook now, kind of reflecting the complex nature of the storm with the snow and the freezing rain potential there coming in across Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. And you might be asking why this is a big deal. For those living in the South, obviously, we don't see this kind of winter precipitation that often. So when it does happen, it causes a big havoc and a big problems. And we're going to see that here again, starting tonight and going straight through Friday across the deep south. So we got a lot to break down for this update. So let's go ahead and talk about the high resolution model. This is going to take us into midnight going in toward your Friday. So we're going to see the evolution of this storm system here across Texas as this progresses off toward the east. It's really the only game in town here as we go through this forecast period. So look what happens here. Again, we're watching that upper level low energy back here that's going to be kicking this way, and we're going to see again a surface low form over here. So that's what's going to happen here as we go through time. So going into late this afternoon and going into tonight, you see the snows and the precipitation there erupting, going into Texas there. And that will go in for tomorrow, seeing how it really kind of erupts there going into Thursday. Things really start to go downhill. You got several layers here. You got the snow layer, obviously, with that deep blue there. You'll have a little bit of that freezing rain stuff here in the middle, and the rain's down to the south of that. And the question mark is going to be, where exactly does the snow and the freezing rain line kind of lines up? And this is going to be true for the complete duration of the storm system as it moves off toward the east. So a big part of North Texas there getting hit with some pretty good heavy snows there as the upper feature kicks on out and that new low begins to take form there as it tracks along the Gulf Coast. And we'll see this kind of slide out of Arkansas and go into northern Mississippi, and then eventually moving into Georgia, Alabama, and Georgia as we go in toward Friday. So as you can see, we're also seeing on the high resolution model a few thunderstorms here along the Gulf Coast. Not looking severe at this moment, but it still wouldn't surprise me if an isolated one became severe just because of the dynamics with this particular storm. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the jet stream here. This is what's kind of driving this. Again, we're talking about this energy back here that's swinging on out, that's bringing this low pressure system to this area. So let's go ahead and go forward into time with this as this kicks on out, as it merges with that jet and moves off toward the east. So this slides on through going into our Friday. By the time we get into go into Saturday morning, it's ejecting out across the out to sea. Then we got another little cold shot here coming on down here as we go into early next week, going into toward the 13th, 14th, and 15th. So here's that vortex dropping down there just a little bit. This is our polar vortex right here, a little piece of energy here driving around across the Great Lakes. That's going to drive down some very cold air across the eastern third of the United States as we head toward the 14th and 15th. As that cold air settles on it kind of pushes on down to the south. Then we get a little bit of a break. Around the 16th and 17th, we get a little bit of a zonal flow here. Just briefly, here's your subtropical jet. That's going to allow temperatures to moderate just a little bit, but don't get used to it. It's just going to happen for a day or two, and then we're going to see yet another breakdown with another polar vortex coming on down here once again, a little bit further to the west here, but we got a pretty good dip in the jet stream, and it's that jet stream there that may develop a new low pressure system here and cut up toward the Great Lakes. So that could be another big snowstorm as we head toward the 20th and 21st of January. So this very cold pattern looks like it stays in place and it stays active right through the end of this model run, which takes us right up until the 22nd. So outside of maybe a couple days where the temperatures may moderate a little bit, it still looks pretty cold. And it looks like the pattern may get a little more progressive a little bit later in the month. Obviously, we're going to watch that potential next big snowstorm heading toward the 20th and 21st. So stay tuned for that. All right, let's talk about the precipitation amounts here. Again, as we look at the forecast here, again, we're looking at some pretty heavy rains here along the Gulf Coast with its particular system. Let's go ahead and switch this over to the actual forecast track here. So let me go ahead and show you that. Again, you see where the heavy rains are going to expected there, and that's with that system right along the Gulf Coast. So we're going to track this system right on through that period here as we go ahead and track this. Again, we're tracking this right along the Gulf, coming on through, and there's that low pressure will be sitting right here along basically the Louisiana coast. Now, it's important to track the low because if it's a little bit further inland, the snow line will go a little bit further to the north. If it's a little bit further south, maybe the snow line's a little bit further south. So we're talking about tens of miles here. It can make a big difference between somebody seeing winter precipitation and somebody not seeing anything at all. So again, that low is expected to track just right along the Gulf Coast here. It's going to spread that freezing precipitation right in through North Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi as we go in throughout the day on your Friday. And then this will quickly move on out to sea. So it moves on out. We'll have some snows there across the mid-Atlantic as well, parts of the Northeast, just not that bad though. The main this will be heading on out to sea. So this goes on out and it looks like we'll see things not looking too bad. And then we're going to see another system coming out here. This will be a weak one here. This will kind of enhance the snows across the Great Lakes here as we go into the 13th. You'll see this kind of spread off toward the east there. Going into the 13th, we'll get some snows. And there's our polar vortex right there. Boom, there's our little 504 core there, as that's going to bring shut in some very cold air across the eastern third of the United States as we go into the 14th and 15th. So here it goes, dives on down, boom. You can see where the 540 line here crashes all the way down here into the deep south. Looks like maybe some snow once again, very light snow across the Carolinas and North Georgia going in toward the 15th with that very bitterly cold air coming in. Notice that you got a mild air back off here toward the west. And again, that'll be for the 17th and 18th as this quick cold air is going to basically shift on out to sea. We'll get a little bit of a break here for a couple of days going toward the 17th and 18th. You'll see this. So I freeze it right there on the 17th. Notice the freezing line has definitely shifted on out. So it's not quite as far south here. Definitely further off toward the north, but then we're going to watch for another core of cold air to come on down beyond that as we head toward the 20th. And it'll be that dive. Here's that energy right here. This is the one that's going to spawn our new storm system as this tracks down to the south, and we're going to get a new low to form down here toward the south, and this will be tracking up this way. So watch what happens here as we head toward the 20th here. As that energy comes on down the south, we're going to get the new storm system developed. Here it comes, boom. Here it goes, coming all the way down and forming up toward the middle of the country. So this could be a substantial snow event here. But again, this is still 300 and something hours out. So take this with a grain of salt. This is probably going to change a little bit here, but that right now, my friends, is the time period. So starting with the energy coming into the Rockies sometime around the 19th, and then spawning that new low pressure system and looking at a big storm system there across the Great Lakes as we head toward the 21st. This is subject to change. This is a long range projection at this point, and this moves on out. But the one thing is, as far as the forecast trend, look, here's that freezing line again, way down here to the south. Big part of the country here looking quite cold, quite extensively as we head toward the 23rd. And that trend has been there really for days on end. All right, now we're going to focus here on the snow totals for the Deep South. I got a few models for comparison. Obviously, the folks across the Deep South do not see this kind of snow very often, so we're going to take a look at several of these to kind of get us started. So we're going to focus first on the south central portion of the United States. We're going to compare these so you can kind of see them adjust a little bit. So this pink area, basically, you're talking about above 7 inches of snow. There's a couple areas in here. I see 11 and a half in here. Here's another 11 and a half, kind of right near the Arklatex area, right through where Texas and Arkansas and Oklahoma kind of all meet up in there. That is the European model, okay? And that is expected to fall mostly going into Thursday and going into Friday morning, okay? So that is on that one. Let's compare it now to the American GFS. Okay, American GFS is not showing quite as much, and it looks like it's maybe slightly a little bit further north, just a little bit there. Look at the comparison there once again, just a little bit. So it's not quite as much, but just slightly off to the north. And now we're close enough now that we can look at the higher resolution model. And this one's interesting. I wanted to show you this because when I show you the high resolution, ooh, that's a little bit different, isn't it, than the European model. So this is actually a little bit further to the west a little bit and a little bit further to the south, and definitely showing potential amounts upwards of 11. I see a 14-inch in there as well. So again, any deviation on where this low sets up and how it develops and stuff can make a big difference on the placement of where the heavy snow band is going to set up. All right, so let's shift over into the southeast. So let me go back over to the European model here again. We'll go back over here. We're going to switch to the southeast. And again, most of the snow here across Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia is going to fall into your Friday and ending Friday night. So one thing you notice is as the storm system progresses off toward the east, the snow amounts do go down. Now, a lot of North Georgia here looks in at basically 2 to 4 inches, maybe upward of 5 inches across northern Alabama. Mississippi showing areas there getting close to 6. That purple is getting close to 6 inches. So it does deviate a little bit. So let's compare the European model to the American GFS model. So this is the European model. Let's see what the European model looks like, or the GFS model looks like. So I'll switch this over to the southeast, and there's that. So we got a little bit of a difference of opinion here. So look at here's the European model. All right, you see where that freezing line is. Let me go, or where the snow line is. We'll just do it with a blue line. We'll use that, easier to kind of follow. So I'm gonna draw that right through there. All right, and then let's go ahead and bring this over to the American GFS model. Ooh, okay, so it's showing it a little bit further south. So again, any deviation in that track will make a big difference. Now, one thing's going to happen because this is coming in on during the day on Friday. There's some mid-level warming that's going to take place here with this. So what that's going to mean is that column of air coming into Georgia will eventually switch over to some sort of freezing rain during the day, probably late in the day into the evening hours. So it doesn't look like it's going to amount to too much, but I'm going to watch that closely to see that could have a significant impact on potential snow mounts for anybody watching there across the North Georgia area. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the temperature profile here over the next couple of weeks. It is definitely looking quite cold over the next few weeks. So let me switch back over to the European model here. All right, and we're going to watch this as we go through the next few weeks. One thing's for sure, again, we're staying cold for the rest of this week. We do get some moderation here across the high plains here, just a little bit there. But for the most part, a lot of the country is looking quite nippy and quite cold. So we're going into this upcoming weekend, staying cold across the southern tier, a little bit moderately different there across the northern tier as we go into this upcoming weekend. And then we got another cold shot coming down. That's that cold shot coming down next week. Again, it's going to enhance that cold coming in across the deep south. You notice we're seeing temperatures here 20 to 30 degrees below zero, below normal, not below zero, below normal there across the Ohio River Valley, with that shot coming in here, getting toward the 15th. Then toward the 16th and 17th, remember I said we got that little bit of moderation coming. So it's pretty cold across the deep south on the 16th. And then as we go toward the 17th, we got a lot more red on this map, at least briefly. We get a lot more red here across the middle of the country. Still very cold here across the southeast, especially Florida. And then beyond that, you know what happens. We get that reinvasion coming back down again as we head toward the 19th, 20th, a big breakout here. Look at these temperatures running well below normal. We're talking 30 degrees below normal. And the fact that we're building a snowpack now across Canada and into the United States, I'm a little more privy to believe this now than what we were seeing, say, back in December. So this will be moving off toward the east. And look at look at that big part of the country there with a temperature anomaly here. This could be a significant Arctic outbreak if this holds true. Obviously heading toward the 20th of, we got to warm up here across the southeast, just waiting for that cold front to come on, and it won't last long as this pushes off toward the east. And look at that. Look how much of the country there is caught in that deep purple, the ice box, as we head toward the 22nd. Again, this is subject to change, folks. Anything beyond 10 days is, again, kind of an extrapolation at that point. But the trend for a cold January is definitely staying in the cards. So let's see what the Climate Prediction Center folks are saying here. Let's look at what they're saying here as we look at the 6 to 10 day outlook. Again, cold here across the southeast, slightly above across the high plains. We're seeing that, and near normal. And this is for the 13th through the 17th. Let's go back a little bit further. 8th to the 14th, coast to coast, everybody getting in here on the cold. And you just saw that on that outlook there from the European. Yeah, that would kind of go on that, but the only change I would see to this map, if what we're seeing on the European's true, is maybe this blue becomes a little bit darker, because it's definitely looking like it could be a significant Arctic outbreak as we head toward the just past the middle of the month. Precipitation-wise, we're continuing this dry pattern here for the next 10 days. That's before that next big snowstorm fires up. So this goes from the 13th to the 17th. That potential next snowstorm looks like it was like from the 19th to the 20th it was starting to develop. So beyond that, becomes a little more normal in here. Still dry out here on the west coast, and a little bit of dry weather there across the Pacific northeast. The Pacific Northwest. Northwest is dry, northeast is dry. Get my geography down for you there. Sorry about that. So anyway, that's what we're looking at right now here, folks. It's going to be, again, a crazy day for a lot of the South beginning tomorrow night. Going into Thursday and going into Friday, it's going to be quite snowy across areas that don't normally see that kind of precipitation. And it looks like the cold trend is going to continue for the month, which means other opportunities for additional major snowstorms. And yours truly is going to keep a watchful eye on this and keep you updated every step of the way on this. I'm not going to sit there and show you, like showed you that snowstorm potential there on the 20th and really scream the sky is falling. We'll wait till we get a little bit closer to it. And then if I think it's going to be a big deal like the snowstorm we're getting across the south, I definitely will raise the red flags, that's for sure. Hey, now if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please do so at this time. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And if you like what you see with this report, again, please leave a comment down below, give me a thumbs up. I do appreciate your support. All right, that's your update for now. You guys take it easy, be good, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.